Sunset over Atlanta flooded the penthouse with thick amber, reflecting in the panoramic windows and on the impeccably polished leather of the Italian furniture. Nia fixed a curl that had escaped her perfect hairstyle and smiled into the smartphone camera. The screen was exploding with thousands of hearts and comments like, "Black love goals." Behind her stood Jordan. She was the embodiment of power. A bespoke beige three-piece suit hugged her shoulders. Her fresh fade was geometrically perfect, and a heavy gold watch on her wrist caught the last rays of the sun. She placed her palm on Nia's rounded belly. For the viewers, it was a gesture of tender protection, but Nia felt the weight of possessiveness. "We are building this legacy for him," Jordan cooed in her signature low baritone that gave her followers goosebumps. "King in the making." And cut. Nia exhaled, pressing end. The warmth instantly left the room. Jordan's smile vanished as if erased by an eraser. She abruptly removed her hand from her wife's belly and tugged at her shirt cuff with irritation. "The light was terrible, Nia. You turned your bad side again. We are selling a dream, not your swelling." "Sorry, Jay. I just wanted to catch the sunset," Nia began, instinctively covering her belly with her hands. "Don't make excuses. Just match the standard." Jordan walked to the bar without even glancing at her wife. "You are my queen, so act in a way that doesn't make me ashamed of the picture." A sharp notification sound tore through the silence. Jordan lazily looked at the screen, and her relaxed posture instantly changed to the tension of a predator. The color drained from her face. "I need to leave. Now." "But we ordered dinner." "These are business matters, Nia," she barked, already grabbing the keys to the Range Rover. The front door slammed, leaving Nia in the echoing silence of the huge apartment. For a million followers, it was a kiss of love, but Nia still felt the cold calculation on her skin that remained instead of warmth. The air smelled of Jordan's expensive cologne and the faint scent of impending trouble. The office door was ajar, a rare, almost impossible oversight for Jordan. Nia stepped inside, and she was immediately enveloped by the thick, heavy scent of expensive tobacco and sandalwood. This aroma, usually arousing, now seemed stifling, like the air in a crypt. She was looking for a phone charger, but her gaze was magnetically drawn to the massive mahogany desk. There lay a stack of papers, carelessly forgotten in haste. On top was the logo of their foundation, Black Future. Nia touched the cold paper. Bank statements. Cayman Islands. Cyprus. Hundreds of thousands of dollars that were supposed to go to grants for young black entrepreneurs were going to the accounts of shell companies. Nia flipped further. The lists of scholarship recipients were fiction. The names Jordan proudly read out at gala dinners did not exist. Nausea rose to her throat in a hot wave. Jordan wasn't just breaking the law. She was stealing from her own. From the very single mothers and HBCU students who looked up to them as icons of success. All their brilliance, their black excellence, was paid for by the hopes of people who trusted them. The numbers on the paper danced, forming a verdict. Their luxurious life was built on bones. Nia's hands shook so hard that the sheets of paper rustled in the silence of the room. Suddenly, the electronic lock of the front door clicked downstairs. Heavy steps in the hall. Jordan had returned. There was a deafening silence in the dining room, broken only by the sharp screech of silver utensils on porcelain. Nia tried to swallow a piece of salmon, but her throat tightened in a spasm. She knew that silence was now more dangerous than words. "Jay, how are the HBCU grants?" Nia's voice trembled, giving her away completely. "I heard there were delays with the transfers." Jordan froze. Her fork, not reaching her mouth, slowly lowered to the plate. She raised her eyes. Nia knew that look. That was how Jordan looked at competitors before destroying their business. Dark eyes scanned her wife's face, reading micro-expressions of fear. Slowly, like a panther, Jordan stood up from the table and approached Nia. The air around her thickened. She placed a heavy hand on Nia's belly. Fingers with massive rings squeezed slightly. It looked like a caress, but felt like seizing property. "Why are you filling your pretty little head with numbers, mamas?" Jordan rumbled. She switched to her signature low register, that velvet baritone that used to make Nia's knees weak. Now that sound made her want to shrink into a ball. "I do it all for us, baby girl. You don't need to think. You just need to shine." Jordan leaned lower, burning Nia's ear with her breath. "You're too tense. We need a break. Tomorrow we fly to the yacht. Just you and me. No connection." It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. Her hand on Nia's belly wasn't protecting their son. It was reminding her who the real master in this house was. After the oppressive gloom of the penthouse, the Caribbean sun hit her eyes like a camera flash. Turquoise water stretched for miles around, flawless and absolutely indifferent to what was happening on board. Nia adjusted the strap of her Fendi swimsuit, feeling sticky sweat run down her back, not from the heat, but from animal fear. It was unnaturally quiet on the yacht. Jodeci's "Forever My Lady" flowed sluggishly from hidden speakers. This music, once the soundtrack of their love, now sounded like a funeral march in paradise. "Jay, where is the captain? Where is the crew?" Nia's voice broke into a whisper. Jordan stood by the rails, swaying a glass of champagne. The gold chain on her exposed chest sparkled so brightly it hurt to look. She looked relaxed, like a predator after a hearty meal. "They went on the dinghy for supplies, baby. We are alone." Jordan nodded at her Louis Vuitton bag tossed on a lounge chair. "There's a gift for you inside. Open it." Nia walked to the bag on cotton legs. She hoped to feel the velvet of a jewelry box, but her fingers touched cold, thick paper. She pulled out the document. A life insurance policy in Nia's name. Date of issue yesterday. Payout amount in case of accident at sea, $5 million. She slowly raised her eyes. The ocean was too beautiful to die in, but Jordan looked at her through cigar smoke as if Nia were already a ghost. The sky over the horizon turned the color of fresh arterial blood. The wind picked up, flapping the tails of Jordan's unbuttoned shirt. She stood motionless, blowing thick clouds of cigar smoke into her wife's face. There was no fear or guilt in her posture, only the boredom of a CEO firing a negligent employee. "Are you going to kill me?" Nia's voice trembled, breaking into a squeal. "For money?" Jordan smirked, flicking ash onto the teak deck. "Not for money, baby. For freedom and reputation." She took a step forward, backing Nia against the rails. "If I go to prison, everything we built collapses. But if I return home a grieving widow who lost her wife and unborn son in a storm, the foundation gets millions in donations. The nation will weep with me." She spoke about it so casually, as if discussing a corporate merger. No hatred, pure mathematics. "You're a monster," Nia whispered. "I'm a businessman," Jordan corrected, lazily examining Nia through the smoke. "You were a great asset, Nia. Perfect looks, right pedigree. We sold Black Love, and you handled it perfectly. But you looked at the accounting. You became a liability." She came up close, looking down at Nia with icy calm. "You are a beautiful picture, Nia. But pictures should be silent and hang on the wall. And you started asking questions." "Jan!" Nia lunged for the exit, driven by animal fear, but Jordan intercepted her with frightening ease. The crunch of a broken long acrylic nail sounded louder than a gunshot. The first detail of their glossy facade flew off, falling onto the teak deck. Nia tried to break free, scratching her wife's impeccable suit, but Jordan sharply, without hesitation, drove her knee right into Nia's stomach. The air left her lungs with a whistle. The pain was blinding, tearing her insides apart. Nia collapsed to her knees, gasping for salty air, instinctively hugging the place where the life of their child beat. Her vision darkened from the spasm. "Sorry, little one," Jordan whispered, leaning to her ear. There was no regret in her voice, only the fatigue with which one gets rid of old things. A strong, ruthless shove to the shoulder. A second of weightlessness, and the ocean accepted her harshly, like concrete. Ice water instantly clogged her nose and ears. Salt burned her throat, mixing with the metallic taste of blood on her bitten lip. Everything superficial. False eyelashes, expensive jewelry, the status of a millionaire's wife disappeared in an instant. Only a body remained, fighting for a breath in the black water. Surfacing, choking on foam and a scream that no one heard, she saw the stern moving away. The last thing her gaze captured before another wave covered her head was Jordan's impeccable white loafers moving away under the roar of the revving motor. The roar of the motor faded into the distance, leaving Nia alone with a deafening, dead silence. The water around her wasn't just dark, it was inky, thick like oil. The stars above looked at her with cold, indifferent eyes. Nia clung with whitened fingers to a slippery piece of plastic debris, some forgotten fishing buoy smelling of rot. Her legs dangled helplessly in the abyss. Suddenly, something touched her ankle. A soft, sliding movement. Seaweed? Or the rough skin of a predator drawn to the smell of blood from her lip? Panic squeezed her throat, but Nia couldn't afford to scream. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to chase away images of jaws closing on her body. Instead, her grandmother's voice floated up in her head, the smell of sage and old prayers that Nia considered a relic of the past. "Yamaya, Madre de Agua," she whispered with salty lips. "Don't take us." But the ocean demanded payment. In the lower abdomen, where Jordan's knee strike had landed, a fire was igniting. It wasn't just pain. It was a hot, pulsating alarm signal in a frozen hell. I whispered the names of ancestors into the black water, begging them not to take the small life beating inside me. But with every wave, I felt strength leaving us both. Dawn brought not relief, but the visibility of a nightmare. The sky was the color of dirty ash, merging with the endless leaden water. Nia was no longer shivering. The cold had penetrated so deep it became part of her skeleton. But inside her, something snapped, quietly and terribly. A sharp cramp twisted her body, making her scream, but the sound drowned in the noise of the waves. A warm stream down her legs felt like a burn in the icy ocean. Nia watched with horror as the turquoise water around her hips turned a delicate, treacherous pink color. It wasn't just a miscarriage. Her son was leaving. The legacy Jordan spoke of so pompously, king in the making, was now dissolving in the salty foam, never having taken a first breath. "No, no, please," Nia whispered, trying to gather this pink water back with her hands to hold the life flowing through her fingers. The emptiness inside turned out to be more terrible than death. The meaning of holding on to this piece of plastic vanished. Why? To return to a world where she was betrayed? Nia unclenched her numb fingers. She closed her eyes, ready to let the abyss take what remained of her body. The ocean took not just my blood, it took my future, dissolving it in the salty foam. But at the moment, the water closed over her chin. Through a veil of tears, she saw a dark dot on the horizon. An old, shabby fishing schooner cutting the waves straight toward her. Salvation that arrived a lifetime too late. Rough hands dug into her forearms, pulling her out of the water with the force used to pull a net with a catch. Nia's body flopped onto the wooden deck, slippery with fish scales and slime. Instead of a clean sea breeze, her lungs were burned by a thick mixture of diesel exhaust, rancid sweat, and cheap Populares cigarettes. Faces tanned by sun and wind leaned over her, dark, wrinkled, with anxiety in their eyes. "Está viva! Agua! Rapido!" someone croaked over her ear. She lay curled up, shivering on dirty boards. Yesterday, she slept on 1,000-thread-count silk. Today, she was a piece of meat, fished out of international waters. Her skin, once glowing and groomed with oils, was now gray from salt and death. She felt like an alien element here, among rusty tackle and poverty, but it was this poverty that gave her the chance that wealth had taken away. The old captain with a thick gray beard sat down nearby, throwing a prickly, oil-smelling blanket over her. He looked into her eyes, searching for reason there. "Como te llamas, chica?" "Name?" he asked hoarsely, handing her a flask of water. Nia tried to unstuck her cracked lips. A name flashed through her head, one Jordan whispered to her in love and shouted in anger. "Nia!" But that name belonged to a woman who believed in fairy tales and family values. That woman drowned along with her unborn son a couple of hours ago. When the captain asked my name again, I remained silent, looking through him. The woman who fell from the yacht no longer existed. I closed my eyes, letting the noise of the old motor drown out the scream inside. Now, I was no one. And that was the perfect start for revenge. The stifling air of a small eatery in Centro Habana smelled of sour rum, sweat, and hopelessness. Nia scrubbed a sticky stain on the table with force using a dirty rag. Her hands, which once knew only manicures and lotions, were now rough with broken nails. Her luxurious curls were gone. She had shaved her head bald, rejecting femininity as a weakness. An old TV mumbled above the bar counter. Suddenly, the noise of salsa was drowned out by a familiar voice. Nia froze. On the screen, in a CNN studio, sat Jordan. She looked impeccable in a black Tom Ford suit. Her face expressed perfect, photogenic grief. "We are launching the Nia Legacy Fund," she said, dabbing dry eyes with a handkerchief, "so that the memory of my wife and our unborn son helps others." Nia watched Jordan monetize their tragedy. Black mourning became a marketing strategy. She was selling their history to launder even more dirty money. Something clicked inside Nia. The ice that had shackled her heart in the ocean turned into molten lava. "You don't look like a local," a voice came from behind. A man sat at a corner table. American. He was watching not the TV, but how the cleaning lady's fists clenched. "You understand every word she says, right?" Nia slowly turned. There was no fear in her gaze, only a killer's emptiness. She looked at the screen where Jordan was accepting the host's condolences. "She cried for me, live on air wearing diamond earrings, and I swore those tears would become real." "What do you want?" she asked hoarsely. "I need people who don't exist," the man answered, placing a card without a name on the table. "And you seem to have died years ago." 5 years merged into one endless day full of dirt, gunpowder, and pain. Rise at 4 a.m., running across rough terrain until lungs burn with fire. Hand-to-hand combat with men twice her weight. At first, they pitied her. Then They started to fear her. Strike, block, strike. Naya died in the mud of the obstacle course. Her soft body, accustomed to silks and shea butter, disappeared. In its place emerged a machine of sinew and steel. Curls were replaced by a tight bun, manicure by calluses from a pistol grip, and the gentle, soft femme gaze by the cold scope of a sniper. There was no silence at the shooting range, only the deafening rhythm of shots. Bang. Jordan. Bang. Betrayal. Bang. My son. Every shot at the target bore her name. Jordan. 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 She hit the bullseye time after time without blinking. She learned to pick locks, lie to a polygraph, and break bones with one precise movement. She burned the fear out of herself, filling the void with icy calculation. Enough! The instructor's voice interrupted the series of shots. He threw a folder on the table. You're ready. The test is passed. Nia is gone. She took the folder. A stranger looked back at her from the photograph. Tough. Beautiful. Dangerous. What should I call you? He asked. She wiped sweat from her forehead, smearing gunpowder residue. Agent Vanessa Vaughn. The glass doors of the terminal slid open silently, letting her into the cool, sterile air of the international airport. Vanessa Vaughn lingered for a second by a dark window, meeting her own reflection's gaze. She wore a charcoal-black Saint Laurent pantsuit that fit like a second skin, and stilettos sharp as knives. Her hair, once shaved in a dirty Havana bar, now lay in a flawless, smooth style. But if before this gloss was an attempt to please a wife, now it was camouflage. The perfect manicure hid hands that learned to break bones in a second. It was the highest form of bad bitch energy, professional, lethal, and expensive. The board lit up with boarding. Flight 404, Washington, D.C. In the capital, Jordan was already trying on a senator's chair, bathing in camera flashes and public love. She thought the past was buried at the bottom of the Caribbean Sea. She was wrong. Vanessa adjusted the bag on her shoulder. Where a makeup bag used to lie, now rested an encrypted dossier and a service weapon. She stepped toward the gate, feeling a cold, intoxicating anticipation. Atlanta created a victim, Havana forged a weapon, and Washington would become the stage for execution. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom buzzed like a hive filled with expensive perfumes, the clinking of crystal, and political falsehood. Vanessa stood in the shadow of a massive column, blending into the interior in her impeccable security service uniform. A micro earpiece hissed quietly in her ear, but her attention was riveted to the stage. There, in the beams of spotlights, stood Jordan. Years in politics had polished her image. Gray at the temples added solidity, and the hardness of her features now read as leader's strength. Next to her, frozen like a porcelain doll, was Maya, her new wife. A young, dazzlingly beautiful model whose only task was to be silent and smile. We must protect our families because that is the foundation of our community, Jordan broadcasted from the podium. The crowd of black elite, the cream of Jack and Jill society, hummed approvingly. They saw in her a hero who had redeemed sins, a stud protector who survived tragedy. Vanessa narrowed her eyes, watching Jordan's fingers interlaced with Maya's fingers. White knuckles. She held her new wife's hand as tightly as she once held mine. The audience saw love. I saw a trap. Maya was not a partner. She was a trophy, a hostage in a golden cage. Vanessa discreetly touched a sensor on her wrist, activating a false alarm in the building's system. Code red. Potential threat in Sector A, she whispered into the headset, stepping out of the shadows. I'm taking the candidate myself. The headquarters office resembled an operating room, Cold glass, chrome steel, and sterile silence. Jordan sat at a huge desk, twirling Vanessa's resume in her hands. She wasn't reading, she was studying the woman across from her. Vanessa sat with perfect posture, not averting her gaze. Nothing of Nia's softness remained in her. It was a duel of two predators. Jordan was used to women, femmes, either melting or shrinking in her presence. Vanessa was an ice wall. Your dossier is impeccable, Miss Vaughn. Private security in Beirut? Impressive. Jordan leaned forward, invading personal space. But I don't just need muscles. I need loyalty. Vanessa leaned slightly forward to meet her, allowing the air to do its work. A thin, barely perceptible trail of her perfume wafted over the table. Sandalwood and Madagascar vanilla. The very scent she wore 7 years ago. Jordan froze mid-sentence. Her nostrils flared predatorily. Her gaze darted to Vanessa's eyes, trying to pierce the defense, to find the frightened girl she had drowned there. For a second, electric tension hung in the office. She inhaled my scent and froze, like a beast sensing an old danger, but pride did not allow her to believe in ghosts. Jordan blinked, shaking off the delusion. The dead do not return. And this woman was too alive and too dangerous. You have good taste in perfume, Jordan said slowly, and a self-satisfied smirk touched her lips. You're hired. The mansion in Georgetown was bigger than their old penthouse in Atlanta, but inside everything was frighteningly familiar. The same aggressive minimalism, the same beige tones, the same icy perfection that smelled not of comfort, but of a museum. Vanessa moved silently, under the guise of a perimeter check. A deft movement of the hand and a miniature bug stuck under the marble countertop in the office. Another one behind the headboard in the bedroom. Jordan's voice came from the living room. It wasn't loud, but it cut the air like a scalpel. Take it off, Maya. You look cheap in red. I told you, wear pearls and the dress I chose. Sorry, Jay. I thought... Maya's voice trembled, full of apologetic intonations that Vanessa remembered too well. Vanessa froze in the hallway, feeling phantom pain in her stomach. This house was a copy of their paradise, only now a different woman lived in hell. The script hadn't changed, only the actress had changed. Vanessa slipped into the master bedroom. On the polished nightstand on Jordan's side, next to the phone and a glass of water, she carefully placed a small, twisted seashell. White, with a pink interior. Exactly the same kind they found on the beach, an hour before they boarded the yacht. It wasn't just a decor item. It was a small time bomb. A greeting from the other side meant to blow up the killer's sleep. Rain drummed furiously on the tinted windows of the armored Cadillac Escalade, cutting them off from the rest of the world. Jordan sat in the back seat, wearily massaging her temples. The day had been long, full of fake smiles and handshakes. Suddenly, a click broke the silence of the cabin. The audio system turned on by itself. The first chords of Sadi's No Ordinary Love filled the space. It was their song, the one they danced to at the wedding. Jordan froze, her hand with the phone lowered. The air became dense, heavy. "Who turned this on?" she asked sharply. Instead of an answer, the music distorted. Sadi's velvet voice was replaced by white noise, through which something cold and wet, like death itself, broke through. "Jay, why didn't you save us? It's so cold there." The voice was quiet, but it hit Jordan harder than a slap. It was Nia's voice. Jordan pressed herself into the leather upholstery, her eyes widening with primal horror. Despite all her cynicism, she grew up on stories about spirits coming for debts. "Turn it off! Turn it off immediately!" she shrieked, losing the senator's mask. Vanessa, sitting in the front seat, calmly pressed the off button. Silence returned instantly. She turned around, her face impenetrable. "Ma'am? It's just radio static. We are driving under a bridge." "Static? You didn't hear the voice?" Jordan was breathing heavily, her hands shaking. "I heard only static, Senator. You need to rest." The cabin smelled of fear mixed with expensive perfume when the dead wife's voice drowned out the noise of the rain. But Vanessa didn't even blink. She knew. Ghosts exist only if you bring them with you. In the empty elite gym, there was the hum of treadmills and heavy breathing. Maya stopped, leaning her hands on the rails, and Vanessa noticed a tear rolling down her cheek, mixing with sweat. "I'm just tired," Maya whispered, not looking at Vanessa. "Whatever I do, it's wrong for her. The dress is wrong. The smile is wrong. She checks my messages, Vanessa, every half hour." Vanessa pressed the stop button on Maya's machine. Silence covered them, creating an intimate vacuum of girl talk. Vanessa stepped closer, lowering her voice to a soft, sisterly tone. "Listen to me, sis. This isn't care. It's control. You don't understand. She has stress because of the elections," Maya began, defending her jailer. "I've worked with people like this all my life," Vanessa interrupted her, looking straight into her eyes. "Power changes them. They start thinking rules aren't written for them. Tell me, does she take her golf bag into the office?" Maya nodded confusedly. "Check the bottom zipper pocket. The one for balls. There's always a second phone there. For business the wife shouldn't know about." Maya turned pale. She slowly walked to the Jordan bag thrown on the bench. Trembling fingers unzipped it. Inside, among spare gloves, lay a cheap black smartphone. Maya raised a gaze full of horror and collapsed faith to Vanessa. "I gave her the key to Pandora's box, knowing the truth would destroy her heart, but save her life. Password is her date of birth," Vanessa prompted coldly. "Narcissists always have one password." The water in the illuminated pool seemed radioactively blue, distorting the guests' reflections. The party was dying down, but Jordan had no intention of leaving. Drunk, with her shirt collar unbuttoned, she cornered Vanessa in the shadow by the changing cabana. Jordan smelled of expensive bourbon and aggressive desire. It wasn't flirting, but testing boundaries. She reveled in the danger her new head of security radiated. "You never blink, Vaughn," Jordan whispered, invading personal space. Her breath burned the neck. "You have dead eyes. Empty. Cold. I like it." She leaned forward, trying to cover Vanessa's lips with hers. It was a gesture of power, an attempt to break the ice and subjugate. But Vanessa wasn't the soft clay Jordan molded her victims from. Vanessa intercepted the senator's hand in a rigid, painful hold and sharply pushed her away. "Keep your distance, ma'am. You are drunk." Jordan recoiled but didn't let go of Vanessa's hand. Her gaze fell on the exposed wrist, where the jacket cuff had ridden up. A thin, encircling scar shone white. The mark from the heavy gold watch that dug into Nia's skin when she clung to the yacht's rails 7 years ago. Jordan's eyes widened. Recognition flashed in them like a spark in a powder magazine. She looked for fear in my eyes, but found only her reflection in a rifle scope. "Where did you get that?" she croaked, sobering up before eyes. "Work injury," Vanessa cut off, yanking her hand back and adjusting her cuff. "Good night, Senator." The office was drowning in thick darkness, broken only by the cold, deathly blue glow of the monitor. Vanessa worked quickly, her fingers flying across the keyboard with the rhythm of a machine gun burst. Only the low hum of servers could be heard in the silence, a sound like the breathing of a sleeping beast. tables flashed on the screen. Accounts, transfers, shell companies. Vanessa expected to see embezzlement, but the truth was far more terrible. "Damn it, Jordan," she whispered. The Black Future Foundation wasn't just stealing grants. It was a giant washing machine for the Sinaloa cartel. Money soaked in blood and cocaine passed through accounts intended for kindergartens and schools in black neighborhoods. Jordan had sold her soul not just to the devil, but to butchers on an international scale. Suddenly, the screen blinked red. Intrusion detected. Lockdown in 30 seconds. Vanessa's heart skipped a beat, but her hands didn't tremble. 20 seconds. The loading bar crawled treacherously slowly. 85%. 90%. 10 seconds. She heard the elevator hum in the corridor. Security. 5 seconds. 100%. She yanked the flash drive out the exact second the screen went dark, going into protective mode. Vanessa dissolved into the shadows a moment before the security flashlight beam sliced through the darkness of the office. In her pocket lay the end of the senator's empire. Every byte of downloaded information brought her closer to the cage she had so diligently avoided. The headquarters' underground parking hummed with flickering fluorescent lamps. Maya sat in her Porsche, trying with trembling hands to cover a blossoming bruise on her cheekbone with foundation. Vanessa opened the passenger door and sat next to her. Maya flinched like a beaten dog. "Leave, Vanessa. If she sees us—" "She hit you." Vanessa gently but firmly turned Maya's face to the light. The purple mark on delicate skin was Jordan's signature, the same one that once adorned Nia's face. "It's my fault. I dropped a vase." Maya rattled off the victim's memorized text. "Enough!" Vanessa's voice lashed like a slap, bringing her to her senses. "She won't change, Maya. 7 years ago, she had another wife, Nia. Jordan didn't lose her in a storm. She killed her. And you are next." Maya's eyes widened. Denial fought with horror, but the truth had already taken root. She knew what Jordan was capable of. "She keeps something." "In the safe in the car," Maya whispered. She placed her finger on the biometric lock in the glove compartment. The lid slid open. There was no money or documents, only a velvet box. Maya opened it. Inside lay a vintage sapphire ring, Nia's ring. Jordan kept it not as a memory of love, but as a hunting trophy, like a deer head on the wall. Vanessa took the ring. The cold metal burned her skin, closing the circle of revenge. She looked at Maya, and in the cold light of the parking lot, we ceased to be strangers and became sisters in misfortune. Now they had one enemy for two. The morning of the decisive debate was supposed to be sterile and predictable, like Jordan's entire career. She entered her office, adjusting her perfectly fitting jacket, ready for the final speech rehearsal. But her gaze stumbled upon an object that shouldn't have been there. In the middle of the pristine mahogany desk lay the sapphire ring. It shone with an ominous blue light, like the eye of a dead man. Next to it lay a white note, written in familiar, flowing handwriting. "Water remembers everything." Jordan's world tilted. "Who came in here?" Her scream tore the silence, making the glass rattle. A frightened assistant appeared in the doorway with a tray. "Ma'am, I only—" "Out! You're all fired. Get out of here!" Jordan threw a paperweight at the wall, and the girl disappeared, slamming the door. Left alone, Jordan paced the office like a cornered beast. Paranoia whispered to her from every corner. They were all against her. Maya, security, voters. Did Nia return? Or is this someone's sick prank? With trembling hands, she pulled out a secret drawer in the desk. Fingers closed around the cold grip of a compact Glock. The weight of the weapon was soothing. She shoved the gun into her quilted Chanel bag, right next to a tube of lipstick. and a speech about protecting children. She looked in the mirror. Outwardly, she was still stud of the year, but dark horror splashed in her eyes. Her confidence cracked like cheap glass, and madness crawled through the cracks. Backstage at the TV studio resembled a disturbed hive. Shouts of producers, assistants running with tablets, endless coils of wires snaking underfoot. But behind the closed door of dressing room number 1, a completely different atmosphere reigned, dense, stifling silence, soaked in the smell of hairspray, powder, and the acrid, sour smell of fear. Jordan sat before a mirror framed by blinding lights. She seemed like a mannequin about to crumble. The makeup artist, a young girl with bright pink dreadlocks, diligently applied a thick layer of concealer under the senator's eyes. "You have strong shadows today, ma'am. Did you sleep poorly?" she chirped, trying to hide traces of paranoia under a layer of Armani luminous silk. "Just do your job," Jordan snapped, and her hand jerked toward the Chanel bag standing on the table. She checked it every 2 minutes. There, next to the lipstick, lay the cold metal of the gun. By the door, like a statue of black granite, stood Vanessa. Her face was impenetrable, eyes hidden behind dark glasses despite being indoors. She saw every micro-movement of Jordan, every drop of sweat appearing on her temple. Vanessa slowly brought her hand to the microphone hidden in her jacket lapel. "All posts. Attention. Protocol Shark activated. Lock down the perimeter." The makeup artist continued to paint over the fear on Jordan's face, applying the final touches to the winner's portrait, unaware that in an hour this mask would be ripped off, along with the skin in front of millions of viewers. Vanessa adjusted her earpiece. The time had come. The on-air sign flashed blood red, and Jordan instantly transformed. The animal fear tormenting her in the dressing room evaporated, giving way to the magnetic charisma of a preacher. She swept the hall with a warm, moist gaze, as if embracing every potential voter. "We were taught that we must be strong alone." Her voice trembled with perfectly rehearsed emotion, making viewers lean forward. "But I tell you, our strength is in unity, in protecting our children, in the sanctity of our home. When I lost my wife and unborn son in that storm, I realized one thing. We are obligated to build walls that will protect our legacy." The hall exploded with applause. People nodded, wiping away tears. They saw in her not a politician, but a martyr who turned personal tragedy into a shield for the entire community. It was the highest form of manipulation, using a wound she inflicted herself to gain power. 2 floors above, in the cool gloom of the director's booth, Vanessa watched this performance through a wall of monitors. Her face, illuminated only by the flickering code on the keyboard, was calm. She wasn't listening to the lies, she was watching the timer. Fingers quickly typed the final command. "System lockdown. All exits." Somewhere in the bowels of the building, heavy magnetic locks clicked dully. Fire exits, main doors, elevators, everything was blocked. The steel trap slammed shut. She spoke of the sanctity of family and open hearts while I locked the doors, so not a single soul could prevent justice from being served. Vanessa slowly rose from the chair and adjusted her jacket. Now there was only one way out, through the truth. The studio plunged into cottony silence when the moderator, obeying a signal in his earpiece, announced, "We have a special question from a representative of Federal Services." A spotlight beam snatched a figure in black from the darkness. Vanessa stepped into the circle of light. The click of her stilettos on the glossy floor sounded like a countdown of the senator's last seconds of life. She was in no hurry. It was her show, her direction, her stage. Jordan, still smiling her standard winner's smile, squinted from the light, trying to make out the agent's face. Vanessa brought the microphone to her lips. Her hand slowly rose to her face. With one smooth movement, she removed the dark glasses, revealing eyes that Jordan had seen in her nightmares for the last 7 years. When I took off the glasses, she forgot how to breathe. Ghosts aren't supposed to appear in prime time. Jordan's smile slid off like melted water. Her face turned gray, transforming into a mask of horror. She grabbed the edge of the podium to keep from falling. Vanessa no longer used the cold, professional tone of Agent Vaughn. She spoke in a voice full of pain and Caribbean sea salt. "Hello, Jordan. Remember our last cruise? You said pictures should be silent. But I decided to speak." Vanessa didn't wait for an answer. She pressed a button on the remote clutched in her palm. The huge LED screen behind Jordan, which a minute ago broadcast pompous slogans about hope, blinked and changed the image. The quality was grainy recovered data from the cloud, but the essence was murderously clear. Blinding sun, white deck, Jordan's beige suit, and that very brutal knee strike. The hall gasped. It wasn't noise. It was the sound of all the air being instantly sucked out of the room. Thousands of people in the studio and millions at screens simultaneously saw their icon, their sister in power, cold-bloodedly push her pregnant wife into the abyss. The image built over years crumbled into dust in 3 seconds of video. "It's a lie!" Jordan shrieked, her voice breaking into a hysterical falsetto. She rushed around the stage, trying to cover the giant screen with her body. "It's a deep fake! It's AI! They're trying to frame me! Turn it off!" But the video continued to play, looped in an endless act of violence. Vanessa slowly took a leather wallet from the inner pocket of her jacket. The gold FBI badge gleamed predatorily in the spotlight. "It's not AI, Jordan. It's Exhibit A in a federal case. You are arrested for attempted murder, fraud, and cartel ties." Millions of people saw Person of the Year turn into a killer in high resolution. The mask slipped, revealing a beastly grin. The studio turned into bedlam. Screams of the audience mixed with the stomping of security trying to break through locked doors. Jordan, realizing there was no way back, acted on the instincts of a cornered beast. Her hand darted into the quilted bag. A second, and the black barrel of the Glock stared into the hall. She sharply jerked Maya toward herself, pressing the muzzle to her temple. The model's perfect hairstyle was messed up, but Jordan didn't care. Maya became a thing again, now a human shield. "Don't come closer. I'll shoot. I swear, I'll blow her head off," Jordan screamed, backing toward the wings. Vanessa stood motionless, holding Jordan at gunpoint with her service weapon. Her hands didn't tremble. In this chaos, she was the only point of absolute calm. "You won't shoot, Jordan." Vanessa's voice cut through the hysteria. "You're not a martyr. You're a narcissist. You love yourself too much to sit in the electric chair for murder on live TV." Jordan's eyes darted. She hesitated. And in that second, Maya, who had been a silent doll for years, came alive. Remembering the bruises, the fear, and that second phone in the bag, she sank her teeth into Jordan's wrist, holding the gun with animal fury. Jordan howled in pain, her grip loosened. Maya jerked away, pushing her tormentor from her. She covered herself with her wife like a shield, but in Maya's eyes there was no longer fear, only rage. Now, Jordan was left alone against the whole world. SWAT flooded the stage in a black and blue wave, sweeping away the remnants of the senator's greatness. Jordan didn't even have time to raise the gun. A heavy shield strike knocked her off her feet, and a moment later, The face that adorned magazine covers just this morning was pressed into the dirty studio floor. Her impeccable beige suit cracked at the seams. Expensive fabric absorbed dust and shame. Vanessa approached slowly, holstering her weapon. The agents parted, giving her the right to the final touch. She knelt beside the defeated Jordan, twisting her arms behind her back. Jordan writhed, wheezing with pain and rage. "Bitch! You should have died in that sea!" she hissed, spitting saliva on Vanessa's boots. Vanessa leaned to her ex-wife's very ear, drowning out the crowd noise. "I did die, Jordan. That kind girl is gone, and what is happening now is just karma coming to collect debts." A sharp, dry click of metal cut the air. Cold steel on her wrists felt better than any embrace. It was the sound of the finale. Vanessa jerked Jordan to her feet. The hall exploded with thousands of camera flashes. They sparkled like lightning in a storm, capturing every wrinkle of fear on the killer's face. The queen was overthrown, and the world hungered to see her fall in all details. The interrogation room was a box of gray concrete, smelling of bleach and despair. Jordan sat at a metal table, slumped. The orange prison jumpsuit hung on her like a sack, killing all her former stature. Without bespoke suits, without gold chains and professional makeup, the magic of Stud of the Year evaporated. Before Vanessa sat not the Queen of Atlanta, but just a tired, angry woman with grown-out roots and dull skin. Vanessa entered without knocking. She threw a thick folder on the table. The sound of the impact echoed off the walls. Jordan perked up. A spark of habitual manipulation flashed in her eyes. She leaned forward, trying to turn on the charm that no longer worked. "Nia, are we really going to end like this?" Her voice sounded hoarse, but the intonations were the same. Honeyed. "I know you're angry, but remember how we loved. I built this empire for us. I just stumbled." Vanessa looked at her silently, the way one looks at an insect under glass. "You didn't build, Jordan. You destroyed." "Chan." She slowly took a black and white photo from the folder. An ultrasound. A small, grainy speck of life that never took a breath. Vanessa placed it on the table between them, like a demarcation line. Without her suits and money, she was just a small, angry human in a gray room trying to bargain with a conscience she never had. "Tell that to him," Vanessa said quietly. "Tell your son you did it for him." Vanessa touched the photo with her fingertips. Her mask of an icy agent cracked. A heavy, hot tear rolled down her cheek without asking permission. "Do you know what color the ocean is at dawn when you lose a child?" she asked quietly. "It's pink, Jordan. I drifted on a piece of plastic and felt life flowing out of me into the salt water. I begged him to stay. I screamed your name, hoping you would return. But you drank champagne while I buried our son in the waves." Silence hung in the room. Vanessa expected anything: denial, a lying plea for forgiveness, even anger. But she wasn't ready for what happened. Jordan's shoulders began to shake, first silently, and then a dry, barking laugh erupted from her throat. She leaned back in her chair, looking at Vanessa with open boredom. "God, Nia, you're still so sentimental," she snorted. "It's been 7 years, and you came here to cry over a failed project? It was just a fetus, biological material, and you turned it into a Greek tragedy." Jordan shook her head, smirking. "You still love me. Otherwise, you would have just put a bullet in my forehead, not staged this cheap therapy session." Vanessa wiped the tear. Her gaze cleared. The pain left, giving way to absolute understanding. She looked at the woman she once idolized and saw emptiness. "I looked for regret in her, but found only a black hole where a heart should be. There was nothing to save, and no one to forgive. Vanessa slowly stood up. The screech of chair legs on concrete sounded like the final chord in their prolonged symphony of pain. Jordan was still smirking, confident in her power, confident that hatred is just the reverse side of love that can be returned. "You were wrong about one thing, Jay." Vanessa's voice was calm, devoid of vibrations. "I don't love you. I love the woman I had to become to survive you. Strong, unkillable, the one who learned to breathe underwater." She took the folder and the ultrasound photo from the table. Jordan stopped smiling. Real fear flashed in her eyes, not of prison, but of oblivion. Fear of being left without an audience. "You can't just leave," she shouted, jumping up, but the handcuff chains attached to the table jerked her back with a clang. "Look at me! I created you!" Vanessa walked to the door. Her hand rested on the switch. "Goodbye." Click. The single bulb under the ceiling went out, instantly plunging the room into absolute thick darkness. "Turn on the light! Turn on the damn light!" Jordan's scream echoed against the walls, full of panicked terror. Vanessa stepped out into the brightly lit corridor. The heavy steel door slammed shut with a dull clang, cutting off the screams of the past. I left her in the dark, alone with the scariest monster herself. The sun on the cafe terrace in Georgetown didn't burn it, gently warmed the skin, as if apologizing for years of cold. Vanessa stirred the ice in a tall glass of tea, watching the woman opposite. Maya looked different. The heavy pearl necklaces Jordan forced her to wear were gone. The layer of thick makeup was gone. In a simple white t-shirt, and with loose hair tousled by a light breeze, she looked 25 for the first time. Young, alive, and most importantly, free. "I signed the divorce papers this morning," Maya said, and her smile finally touched her eyes, instead of being just a memorized grimace for the press, "and gave testimony to the prosecutor's office. They said my words are enough to bury her defense." She covered Vanessa's hand with hers. In this gesture, there was not an ounce of that possessive weight they were both used to in relationships with Jordan. It was a sister's touch, the quiet solidarity of survivors. "Thank you, Vanessa. You pulled me out before I drowned." Vanessa nodded, feeling the knot in her chest, tightened 7 years ago, beginning to loosen. For the first time in a long time, she didn't need to look over her shoulder. We survived the storm, and now we were learning to breathe calm air. "What will you do next?" Maya asked, squinting from the sun. "Where does Agent Vaughn go when the war is over?" "I returned to that very beach. 7 years ago I stepped onto the yacht deck here, full of naive hopes. Today I stood barefoot on the wet sand, and the ocean licked my feet, not as an enemy, but as an old acquaintance with whom we had concluded a truce. In my hand I held a single white rose. Its petals were as delicate as the skin of the baby I never held. "Yamaya, mother of all waters," I whispered, looking into the turquoise distance. "I am repaying the debt. Keep him safe." I unclenched my fingers. A wave picked up the flower, gently carrying it away from the shore, to where the depths kept silence. I watched the white spot disappear into the blue, and felt the leaden weight that had pressed on my chest for years leave with it. For the first time, it was quiet in my head. The hum of revenge subsided. The ocean accepted my flower, promising to keep the secret of my son forever. The silence was broken by a short vibration in the inner pocket of the jacket lying on the sand. Secure line. I picked up the phone, brushing salty dust off the screen. "Vaughn here. Vanessa, we have a situation in Chicago. Code red. We need you." I cast a last glance at the horizon, put on dark glasses, and turned my back to the water. Dictate coordinates. I'm flying out. The TV screen in the hotel room blinked, showing a frame that would go down in history. The title's breaking news burned red. Today, the District of Columbia Court delivered the final verdict in the case of former Senate candidate Jordan Banks. The anchor's voice was dry and impartial. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. All assets of the Black Future Foundation are confiscated. The camera gave a close-up. Jordan was being led out of the courtroom. She had aged 10 years in 1 week. There was no proud posture, no contemptuous look. She hunched over, hiding her face from the cameras she loved so much. The Queen was not just overthrown, she was erased. Her name, once opening any doors, had now become synonymous with betrayal. Vanessa stood in the middle of the room, arms crossed over her chest. She felt no joy, only deep, cold satisfaction, similar to the feeling of a duty fulfilled. She pressed a button on the remote. The screen went dark. The silence in the room was no longer frightening. It was clean. Vanessa walked to the full-length mirror. From the suitcase, she took not a dress and not jewelry, but her leather shoulder holster. She put it on over a white shirt. The leather creaked, hugging her shoulders with familiar weight. This was her new skin. Nia, the girl who dreamed of a beautiful family and a cozy home, remained a ghost in the past. In the mirror reflected Vanessa Vaughn, a woman who went through fire and water, and came out not as ash, but as steel. She ran her fingers over the pistol grip. This was her choice, her protection, her guarantee that no one would ever be able to push her in the back again. Vanessa smiled at her reflection. It wasn't the soft smile of a mother, but the predatory grin of a warrior ready for a new battle. Time, she told the silence. The street of Washington met her with the noise of the crowd, sirens, and life that didn't stop for a second. Vanessa stepped into this stream, instantly dissolving in it, becoming invisible and omnipresent at the same time. The camera rose higher and higher, leaving her figure a small dot among skyscrapers until the city was replaced by the endless, sparkling surface of the ocean. Vanessa's voiceover sounded firm, like a prayer and a curse simultaneously. The world likes to think we are fragile, that we can be used, broken, thrown overboard, and forgotten. They build their palaces on our bones and think the water will hide their sins. But they forget one thing. The noise of the waves drowned out the city sounds. We are the daughters of those who survived the storm in the holds of ships. We don't sink. We evolve. They thought they would drown us, but forgot that we are daughters of the ocean. And we learn to breathe underwater. The screen went dark. Only the sound of a wave crashing against the shore remained.